Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking a deep breath and plunging into one of the most structurally complex, risk-averse, and, well, highly regulated industries on the planet, pharmaceutical manufacturing.
Yes?
We are talking about the seismic shift known as Pharma 4.0.
It's a huge topic.
It is, and our mission today isn't just to parrot the buzzwords, the AI, the IoT, the cloud.
Right.
It's to pull out the strategic blueprint and crucially, the cultural foundation you need for digital transformation to actually succeed in this sector. The sources reveal a very specific map for this.
And that map, it starts with something a bit counterintuitive that I think really reshapes the whole conversation.
Okay.
Our deep dive into the source material shows that the journey to Pharma 4.0 does not start with the tech team, drawing up a big request for new sensors or software.
So it's not about the technology.
Not at first.
Yeah.
No, it starts with one simple, honest question that everyone from leadership down has to answer. Are we, as an organization, fundamentally ready and convicted enough to change? The sources are just so adamant on this. If the workforce sees new tech as a threat to their job, or just another compliance burden, the best system in the world is going to fail. Success is people-centric. It's about conviction and culture, not just tech specs.
Okay, but let's be pragmatic for a second. Conviction doesn't pay for the server racks. How do you measure readiness to change on a balance sheet to get a CFO to approve, say, the first $10 million investment?
That is the core challenge. You have to translate that conviction into momentum. The financial case only works if the organization can prove its cultural readiness to adopt the tech at scale.
Because that minimizes the risk.
It minimizes implementation risk. Exactly. Yeah. If leadership doesn't buy in first, the whole project will just grind to a halt because of internal resistance. And then your ROI timeline becomes impossible to hit. It demands a belief that digital tools are there to simplify compliance, not make it harder.
Okay, let's unpack this term we're using, Pharma 4.0. What do we actually mean by that?
Right. It's the specific application of the general principles of Industry 4.0.
So AI, machine learning, IoT, cloud computing.
All of that, yes. But it's tailored by the International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineering, the ISPE, to meet the sector's very unique quality and safety mandates.
And to put this in context historically, where does 4.0 fit on the timeline?
It's the fourth big wave. So Industry 1.0, that gave us mechanization, steam power.
Okay.
Industry 2.0 was electrification, mass production.
Right.
Then 3.0 brought in automation with electronics and IT systems.
Mm-hmm.
Pharma 4.0 is that next leap to fully interconnected, intelligent, smart manufacturing.
And the urgency for this is intense. We know the pandemic accelerated digital transformation by about 6 years across all industries. This isn't just a theory anymore.
Not at all.
The global Pharma 4.0 market is projected to hit something like $40.3 billion by 2030. That's a compound annual growth of around 20%.
Which is massive growth for an industry that is defined by its caution. But here's the critical nuance. This is what makes pharma so different. While Industry 4.0 in, say, automotive manufacturing is seen as a disruptive revolution.
Focus on speed and efficiency.
Exactly. Pharma 4.0 is much more accurately described as a careful evolution.
Why an evolution? Isn't the technology basically the same?
The technology is similar, but the risk profile is completely different. General manufacturing optimizes for speed. Pharma 4.0's primary goal has to be compliance, quality, and then speed. In that order.
Okay.
This means you have to embed regulatory requirements, what we call GXP, or good practices and standards, from the FDA, the EMA, directly into every single piece of tech.
And that's where it gets complicated.
It's where it gets very complicated. Sources stress that every piece of data has to meet these extremely rigorous ALCOA plus standards for data integrity.
That's a mouthful of an acronym.
It is. It stands for attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, and then the plus adds complete, consistent, enduring, and available. That level of validation means you just can't move at the speed of a normal tech rollout. You have to prove, beyond a doubt, that the digital record is as trustworthy as the old paper one. And that inherently slows everything down. It's quality by design, and it's enforced by law.
That distinction, compliance plus quality plus speed, is crucial. So if that organizational conviction is the starting pistol, what's the blueprint they need to follow?
Well, they need to adopt what's called the ISPE Pharma 4.0 operating model. And this isn't just a suggestion, it's really a necessary strategic framework. It's built around 4 tightly connected quadrants.
And you can't just focus on one.
You can't. When you implement something in one, you have to account for its impact on the other three.
Hmm.
They all have to move together.
So walk us through those 4 areas. Where does the friction usually happen between them?
Certainly. The first quadrant is resources. This covers tangible equipment, but also, critically, your human capital. The focus here is getting to centralized data management and using IoT sensors for things like predictive maintenance. But it absolutely must include what they call human factor integration. That means you're actively training your staff, ensuring their skills are evolving right alongside the technology.
And what's the second quadrant?
That's information systems. This is your tech backbone. And it has to be built for data integrity by design from the very first day. The goal is to move the organization away from traditional after-the-fact batch review to true real-time decision-making on the factory floor.
And I imagine that's where new systems often clashed with the old way of doing things, which I guess is the third quadrant.
That's it exactly. The third is organization and processes. Pharma organizations are historically built in silos, R&D over here, quality over there, manufacturing somewhere else.
Right, and they don't talk.
They resist that cross-functional collaboration. So, implementing Pharma 4.0 demands systematic change management to break down those walls and redefine how work gets done.
And finally, the foundation for all of it.
That's the fourth quadrant. Culture, the shared belief system. It has to foster a non-negotiable quality-first mindset, but also encourage continuous adaptability and learning. If the culture stays static and risk-averse in the wrong ways, all those expensive new systems just become museum pieces.
I really appreciate how the sources frame the business case for all this. They don't just see it as a financial calculation, but as a compelling narrative. Why is storytelling so important here?
Because you need buy-in from the top floor all the way to the plant floor. The narrative has to spell out the returns, not just for the C-suite and shareholder value, but for the lab technicians, the supply chain operators.
The people whose jobs are actually changing.
Yes. It has to focus on solving their specific daily pain points.
And what are those?
Right now, sources show technicians spending up to 40% of their day on manual paperwork, transcribing batch records, reviewing documents, all paper-based compliance.
That's incredible.
It is. So the narrative has to frame these digital tools as a way to simplify compliance, to reduce errors, to free up their time for actual problem solving, not just add to their administrative burden. If they believe that story, their buy-in is what determines the project's success and its speed.
That's a powerful motivator. Okay, let's shift to the financial reality. If the narrative justifies the change to the staff, what returns justify the spend to the executive team? What kind of cost savings are we talking about?
The projections are pretty substantial. They estimate anywhere from 15 to 30% cost savings across several key areas.
And these are coming from optimization and risk mitigation, primarily.
Exactly.
So where do those savings actually come from in such a high-cost regulated environment? Can you give us some concrete examples?
Sure. Let's start with maintenance. When you deploy IoT sensors for predictive maintenance, you can anticipate equipment failure.
So instead of a machine just breaking down.
Right, which guarantees lost batches and a compliance nightmare, the system tells you it needs service next Tuesday. This proactive approach can cut machine downtime by up to 30%.
You also mentioned digital twins. This is where it gets really interesting, I think.
It is. A digital twin is basically a virtual replica of a physical system, a production line, a specific piece of equipment.
So you can experiment on the model.
You can run thousands of simulations on this virtual twin overnight to optimize a process or test a new formula, all without risking an expensive physical production run or contamination or losing a single high-value batch. That just slashes your maintenance and testing costs.
And the regulatory expense, that has to be a huge line item.
It is. Which brings us to compliance costs. Automating how you capture and analyze data ensures you're seamlessly adhering to regulations like the FDA's 21 CFR Part 11.
And just for clarity, what is 21 CFR Part 11?
That's the FDA's standard for making sure that electronic signatures and electronic records are just as legally trustworthy and reliable as paper records.
Place.
Automating that compliance saves an immense amount of manual expense. It speeds up document review, and it leads to faster regulatory approvals. And finally, you see big savings in inventory. Advanced analytics can move you away from just-in-case stock holding, optimizing your inventory, cutting holding costs, and minimizing waste from expired materials.
Now, the sources advocate for something called a social cost-benefit analysis, a CBA, instead of just a simple financial model. Why is that approach better when you're justifying a huge multi-year investment like this?
Well, a standard financial model only really captures cashable returns.
Hmm.
The social CPA is better because it accounts for the project's impact on all stakeholders.
Not just the shareholder.
Not just them. It includes the workforce, the regulators, and most importantly, the patients. It captures all these intangible benefits that are so crucial in pharma.
Like what?
Think about a reduced risk of getting regulatory warning letters, or improved data integrity, or an enhanced employee experience. The benefit of removing tedious, repetitive tasks that cause burnout. When you use a social CBA, you're demonstrating that the investment actually aligns with the organization's core mission. That makes it a powerful tool for getting that internal trust and alignment across all those quadrants we were just talking about.
So as they're building this justification, it has to be tailored to their specific business model. A startup biotech has a very different pitch than a century-old generics producer.
Precisely. If you're an R&D heavy organization, the investment case has to be about accelerating innovation, using AI to screen drug targets or analyze clinical trial data faster.
Cutting development timelines.
Exactly. But if you're a generics organization focused on high-volume production, your focus shifts to supply chain integrity. Maybe you're looking at blockchain to track drugs and prevent counterfeiting across your global network. The technology is always secondary to the business problem you're trying to solve.
That gives us a really clear picture of the strategy. Now, let's get to the reality check. Where does the pharmaceutical sector actually stand today in its digital maturity?
The progress is highly uneven. We see a significant and, frankly, a widening digital maturity gap.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Based on recent indices, the digital leaders in the sector score around a 3.20, but the laggards are stuck way down at 2.28.
Can you translate those numbers for us? What does that gap mean in real-world capability?
That gap is enormous. It means the leaders are already using AI for continuous, real-time prediction of quality issues. They're optimizing energy consumption. The laggards, meanwhile, are still largely relying on manual data entry and periodic testing. This disparity is a severe competitive threat to anyone who delays.
So what's creating this inertia? We've talked about culture, but what are the structural barriers?
Three main barriers come up again and again. First is financial. The high upfront costs, combined with that extended time to value because of all the regulatory validation, it just strains resources.
Right.
Second is human capital. There's a persistent systemic skills gap. You need people with dual fluency, deep process knowledge, and data science literacy, and they are very hard to hire and expensive to train.
And the third one?
And finally, the toughest one is cultural inertia. The traditionally conservative, risk-averse mindset, which has been honed over decades of stringent regulation, it just resists the kind of digital experimentation that you need for 4.0 to succeed. The industry is culturally conditioned to prioritize stability over agile learning.
So to overcome that inertia, the digital vision has to align perfectly with the existing regulatory backbone. How does Pharma 4.0 integrate with the ICH Q10 pharmaceutical quality system? That's the gold standard for quality management.
It doesn't bypass it. It enhances it. Digital transformation is a tool to make the PQS stronger. For instance, Q10 stresses maintaining a state of control.
Right.
Well, Pharma 4.0 moves organizations from relying on periodic end-of-batch sampling to continuous real-time monitoring of critical process parameters. This dramatically improves your understanding of the manufacturing process.
It also digitizes the change management system, I assume.
It does, which allows for better tracking, faster impact assessment, and a much more robust audit trail. And fundamentally, it elevates knowledge management. It systematically acquires, analyzes, and disseminates information instantly across the entire product lifecycle, from R&D all the way through distribution.
And because the risks are so high, you can't just mandate this change overnight. We talked about the need for a phased, risk-based approach. What separates those short-term wins from the long-term fundamental shifts?
The short-term wins, say within 1 to 2 years, are crucial for building capability and organizational confidence. These focus on low-risk digitization things, like implementing electronic batch records to finally get rid of paper.
Or simple data dashboards.
Exactly. Simple dashboards for key metrics. It's about building the digital muscle. The long-term roadmaps, maybe 3 to 5 years out, that's where you focus on the fundamental shifts. Implementing complex AI for predictive quality, deploying full digital twins, integrating advanced automation. It's a deliberate step-by-step approach that's built on validated successes.
So it's not a race.
No. Ultimately, success in Pharma 4.0 isn't about being first to adopt the latest gadget. It's about successfully balancing that rapid technological advancement with stringent regulatory compliance, all while you're patiently overcoming decades of cultural inertia and securing internal trust. That cultural hurdle remains the toughest challenge because without it, that $40 billion market is just aspirational.
It's clear the technology is ready, but the organizations and maybe the regulatory frameworks are still catching up. We noted that widening gap between digital leaders at 3.2A and the laggards at 2.28. So here's a final thought for you to consider. Considering the accelerating pace of AI and automation in the general tech sector, how quickly will regulatory bodies have to adapt their own validation requirements, especially for things like machine learning models that are constantly adapting, to prevent patient-centric innovation from stagnating entirely? That's the critical question for the industry's future, and one for you to mull over as you continue your own deep dive into this evolving space.